Good evening. I'd like to call the Village Board meeting for the Village of Cary for May 21st, 2024 to order with roll call, please.
Weinhammer? Here. McAlpine?
Here.
Collier?
Here.
Dudek?
Here.
Stefani?
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Too bad it's not on here. Show me where it's on here. I will let you. I will. Thank you. We'll now move to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. Nobody has signed in. Is there anybody here who would like to address the village board? None said. We will close open forum at 6:01. Before I get started with my mayor's report, Trustee McAlpine has a little update for us.
Well, I just wanted to share with everyone on the board that I haven't had a chance to talk with, that I did take a tour of the current bus center in Maplewood. I met with David Shepard, as well as some of the bus driver and the superintendent over there. It went very well. It was very informative. I felt that it was a great opportunity, again, to reach out, find out a little bit more, and looking forward to our boards working together to come up with a solution. So just want to share that with the board. And then lastly, one other thing.
That's where I thought you were going with this.
If no one has anything to do tomorrow, it's the Miss Cary Grove Business Scholarship Leadership Program at the high school, 7 o'clock. We have 12 wonderful young ladies that have stepped out of that comfort zone and have been working for the last 3 months towards earning some scholarships. So if anyone's looking for something to do, please come by the high school.
I'll be there. It's a good event. It's great to see these young ladies out of their elements. You know, they really step out. All right. Two great things tonight under my report. We have the swearing in of 2 new police officers, so we'll get right to it. If Curtis Lazzarini can join me up front here, that would be awesome.
Sure. I don't know if you have enough room, though.
Bring them all up. Kind of come over this way here.
Okay.
All right. He's going to be right up here with me. Who's going to be pinning on his badge? My brother. Okay.
No back.
This is quick and easy, painless. There will be a short quiz when it's over. You will raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Curtis Lazzarini, having been appointed to the office of police officer in the village of Cary, in the county of McHenry, aforesaid, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer to the best of my ability. Congratulations. I'll hold on to that. Who's got the badge? You don't need your sticky badges. Did you practice? I've had enough practice. Yeah. Very good. Congratulations.
I got him, we're good. I took action shots.
This is our deputy chief's got name now, and we also have some of our fellows in blue. We also have the privilege of having our police commission, two out of the 3 of our police commission here tonight, which helps make this process go flawlessly. So, what are you laughing at, Scott?
Well, he's a police officer in Fox River Grove.
Oh, I'm
His
sorry.
brother, that's why he's so
He's got a lot of practice.
Well, thank you very much. Congratulations.
Just a little bit about Officer Lazzarini. He's a 2011 graduate of Cary Grove High School. He enlisted and served in the United States Marine Corps from 2012 to 2016. He achieved the rank of corporal. He was a non-commissioned officer. He had received a lot of training, but notably training in martial arts instructor. He was a parachute rigger, and he received airborne training. He attended Lewis University, where he received a Bachelor of Arts degree with a major in history and minor in economics. And he was previously employed as a teacher in both the Waukegan High School and Naperville North High School. I don't know what's more dangerous, the high school teaching or a police officer. He's currently attending the Suburban Law Enforcement Academy for basic law enforcement training.
My father, my sister, my girlfriend, her brother, and her parents.
Come on up, more the merrier. This is a big day, not only for you, but for the village of Cary. You guys have anything? You follow instructions well. You will raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Eden Muvanovic. I know. I tried. I practiced. I even spelled it out phonetically. Didn't do me anything, but trust me, I don't forget a face. Okay. Okay. Having been appointed to the office of police officer in the village of Cary, in the county of McHenry, aforesaid, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, that I will faithfully discharge the duties of office of police officer to the best of my ability. Congratulations. If your dad would do the honors, it would be awesome. There may be some tutoring needed here. Nice job.
A little bit about Officer Mijanovic is he's a 2018 graduate of Mathers High School in the city of Chicago. He attended North Park University, was awarded a Bachelor of Arts degree with a major in criminal justice, and he graduated cum laude. Prior to his appointment as a police officer, he worked in the construction industry, and had his own general contracting business. And he too is attending basic law enforcement training at the Suburban Law Enforcement Academy. And I guess I should also invite everyone that is here for a cake and coffee reception after the swearing-in ceremony.
I saved you. Chief is good to me. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Is Eric on?
Everybody wants cake now.
Just so the board knows, our village administrator, Eric Morimoto, is attending remotely tonight. Hi, Eric. Eric?
Good evening, Mayor. I am
Oh,
here.
he's here, okay. You can hear us okay?
Loud and clear, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G as shown on the village's website and is displayed on the video monitor during the village board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dudek,
Yes.
Weinhammer. Yes. Stefani,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
McAlpine.
Yes.
Moving on to the items for separate action, we have a public hearing tonight. I will entertain a motion to open a public hearing regarding the adoption and amendment of new building codes.
So moved.
Second.
It is 6:10. Is there anybody here that would like to address the village board regarding the village codes? Anybody here? Okay, thanks. Right. If you're going to speak, you have to come up to the podium. Yeah. State your name and address, please.
Chris, 446 Lloyd Street. As far as building codes, is that considered like commercial, residential? Is that the kind of code you're referring to?
All the codes throughout the village, yes.
Okay, are you looking to change them, or what's the,
Well, why don't you, we're going to go through the whole process right now. You'll be able to hear what's going on. We will be adopting some new ones as well. Director Simmons, are you going to take this?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. The discussion this evening, or proposal this evening, is to update the village's development regulations for buildings that are constructed within the community. So they're updating our building codes, the international, the I codes that are internationally adopted. There's various state codes and also National Fire Prevention Association for the electric code. The list of codes is on the right-hand side of the slide, which right now, basically, we're on essentially the 2003 I codes. There's periodic updates that the International Code Council does on a 3-year cycle. They review those codes and do periodic incremental updates to the codes over time as the Code Council reviews how the industry is changing. In various avenues, they'll update regulations for specific items within the various codes. The codes do not affect zoning or the use of property. This is specifically how buildings are constructed in town. So looking at the facility that we're in presently, the size of this room, the codes would dictate how many people could be in the space, and then exiting capacity, how large doorways need to be, should there be an emergency, that individuals can get out of the space as efficiently as possible. Are some of the items that would be covered within the codes. Next slide. Go through the process that we went through to update the regulations for the village. It has been a while since we've done an update. It's kind of necessary at this point to update to current development trends and practices that we've seen in the industries. As you imagine, from 2003 to 2021, the industry has changed in some areas quite significantly, but these are to kind of get more up to date as far as some of the local regulations or the international standards for codes. So over the past year, we did consult with our code consultant, BNF Technical Services, who does the building inspection services for the village. They assisted with this process. They have staff. Mr. Piccolo is here this evening, can answer technical questions regarding the code, but they're very knowledgeable in building codes, regulations, and helped with drafting our regulations here, the amendments that we are proposing. It was a year-long review process to review our existing amendments and things that we've done within our current code that has changed certain aspects of the various elements of the codes, which is in the ordinance that you have before you this evening. That we've tried to eliminate as many of those amendments as possible to rely more on the industry standards that are nationally adopted and internationally adopted to have less local modifications that are specific to Cary. In addition, as you can see next to me here, I have 2 copies of the codes that we're proposing to adopt. They are very thick codes as far as the amount of volume that they do touch, the regulations that they touch. So the amendments that we have are to provide more clarification for some local requirements. And Mr. Fitch, our building and zoning official, will give some more information on those amendments as well. In addition to the village and our code consultant working on the plans. We did work with the Cary Fire Protection District as well, as they also review projects that are developed in the community and have regulations as far as what they would like to see within development within the village. So they did participate in this process as well and provided feedback on the proposed amendments this evening. Their staff is here as well. Scott Pelletro and Chief Del Torre are here that can potentially answer any additional questions that the board may have specific to their organization and some of the local amendments. With that, I'll hand the discussion over to staff. Again, Richard Piccolo is with BNF Technical Services, can provide some overview as far as how these codes are developed and the process for doing so, and then highlight some key changes from the 2003 code to the current 21 codes that we're proposing, and as far as what the major impacts on development in the village would be going forward should they be adopted. And then Mr. Fitch will give some additional insight on some of the local amendments that are proposed within the code that would be also implemented should they be adopted.
Good evening. The ICC, and that's the bulk of the codes that you adopted, work on a 3-year cycle. Every 3 years, they go back and review the code and update the code nationally. Now, who actually writes the code? The members of the organization of ICC write the code. Anybody can submit a code change to change the code, but only code officials that work for a city or a township can actually vote for the code. That's done on a 3-year cycle. So you've been through, since 2003, you've been through 2006, 9, 12, 15, 18, and you're now on 2021 code. It's currently the most current code that's available. There's a 2024, but they're all not published yet, so we couldn't make change to a code that's not quite done yet. It's an interesting process. The next time they do code changes, you can actually they video stream the testimony. It's like a trial. You have one group that wants the code change, one group that don't want the code change. They go back and forth. What's good? What's bad? They come up with the best document possible. Then the members of the organization vote for the code change. Since 2003, there's been a lot of changes, but there's been some that are actually rather more significant than others. The first one is Energy Code. Energy Code, required by the state of Illinois, the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code was adopted. It's got the most sweeping effect on energy conservation for buildings. They've upgraded the requirement for insulation in the ceiling, better windows, better doors, more efficient mechanical equipment. That's probably the biggest single change in the code. It's all the energy code requirements. Other changes, the NEC, arc fault protection. Arc fault protection is so that if you get a slight arc, like you get an extension cord that's frayed and arcs, before it can start a fire, the arc fault breaker trips off, or the receptacle trips off, so there's no fire hazard. For houses, there's the surge protection, total house surge protection requirement. So power surge doesn't affect the electronic equipment in the house.
The decks.
Oh, yeah, last one. When in the 2003 edition of the code, there's very few requirements for the construction of decks. Since 2003, they've added more and more requirements because, believe it or not, there's a lot of deck failures because of improper ledger board, proper material, proper spans, failure for the handrails. That's all been improved to make new decks safer than what it was in the past.
As Brian mentioned with our amendments, so the local amendments is if there's anything when the village, the local municipality adopts the codes, they can certainly just adopt them as is, which is my desire to reduce them as much as possible, just so you're consistent with as many other communities as possible. So in our previous amendments, there was things that were brought over from other previous code editions that weren't in the 2003 code editions that they brought forward and they added them. and just to kind of keep consistency, but they're kind of outdated at this point. Any of those amendments have pretty much been included within the code, or it's just no longer necessary. So we removed all of those. And we try to, again, simplify it as much as possible. So if somebody knows the building code, they can build within Cary. They don't have to keep asking, what do you have different from the community next door or the next community? So again, just simplifying things as much as possible. And again, working with the fire district, we wanted to make sure that what they're seeing in their firefighting operations are supported by the codes, and it's not something that is a hindrance to what they're looking for. Some of the items that they had requested are for standpipes. The code requirement is that a standpipe, and so this is in a taller building. They currently require them at 4 stories. They were requesting that it gets reduced to 3 stories. So this would be, so in the Cary Senior Living apartment building behind Jewel, that'd be an instance where the standpipe would have been added at that point because it's a 3-story building. So they're seeing some things that came up, and they noticed they weren't in the current codes or in the proposed codes, so they want to make sure that got changed. So going forward, that'll be included. And what that allows, the standpipe is the connection for a hose inside the building. So they don't have to carry the hose as far up. They can go there, and then the hose can be dispersed on that level. Another one was in fire sprinkler systems. So fire sprinkler systems, the requirements for them, there's a few different thresholds that kick them in. It could be an occupancy load, it could be a use, and a lot of times it's the square footage, the size of the building, the threshold. And there's different requirements. For certain storage buildings, it's 20,000 square feet. For other uses, it's 12,000. And then if you get into a restaurant or assembly use, it's 5,000 square feet. They're requesting that gets reduced to 5,000 square feet across the board, just to kind of simplify it and just their comfort level with their operations. And another one, a simple one, but to have a low temp alarm in a fire sprinkler system room. So where the fire sprinkler system comes into the when the fire service comes into the building, the water service comes into the building, and they have all the equipment. Usually that's in a separate, they call it a landlord room or a fire sprinkler room. Anyway, it's a separate little room, and there's not always the best heating in those. They'll have heating in them, but if that fails, you can have the water freeze within there, because the water doesn't flow within the system unless there's a fire. So the water's stagnant within those pipes. And so we can have a freezing issue. And I know of at least one since I've been here, and I think there have been ones in the past. So they wanted to eliminate that. So what it is a low temp alarm. So you can still heat it the same way you were, but in case that heating fails, then they're notified. And so the building owners are notified, and the fire district's notified, and they can address it quickly. Another one was fire alarm systems. So there are, just like with fire sprinkler systems, there's thresholds for fire alarm systems, but a lot of them are very high occupant loads in, like, I can't remember, I apologize, but I think it's over 2,000 people for certain assembly uses, so it's very high. But in a lot of other buildings, they're not required unless you have a fire sprinkler system. You get a fire sprinkler system, then you gotta have a fire alarm system in order to notify you. So in the buildings where you don't have a fire sprinkler system, new buildings, they would request that you have to have a fire alarm system. So if you're below that 5,000 square feet threshold that they're requesting for the fire sprinkler systems in a new building, so if you're at 4,000 square feet, you would still have a fire alarm system, so that if you have an emergency, they would be notified. Another one that, so stepping out of the commercial buildings, those were all for commercial buildings. In the residential buildings, back in 2003, during the previous code cycle, either the 2003 or the 2006 code cycle, residential fire sprinkler systems were added into the codes. 2012, apologize. So in 2012, that was added into the code. So there's been a lot of controversy within just all the different stakeholders involved in construction, firefighters, building code officials, home builders, property owners themselves regarding that. So in discussions with the fire district, that was not as high of a concern for them. Obviously, they would request that it stays in there, but it wasn't as large of a concern as these other requirements within the commercial buildings. And their village that currently does not have a lot of single-family home lots left available, right? There's only 8 or so within the village. I think less than 8 still available within the village. So it's not as high of a priority, so we're removing that from the building code, so it can stay consistent the way it is currently. Even with the new codes you constructed, and feeling that there's a lot of other requirements within the residential code that is increasing the safety beyond where we are currently. So we're increasing the safety, but we're not adding that extra cost of doing the residential fire sprinkler system. Stepping away from that, so for pools, which is a large safety safety hazard within residential construction, obviously a great amenity to have, but there are some safety concerns with it. So currently, you have to have a safety barrier, so it's either a fence, or if you're above ground pool, maybe you have a ladder or a guardrail around it. So on a lot of in-ground pools, the current International Pool and Spa Code says that if you have an automatic pool cover, which is, you know, a powered one that goes across the surface, and it meets certain requirements as far as the strength and, you know, nobody falling through it, that would replace having to have the safety barrier, so basically a fence around an in-ground pool. With that, that's one of the few, almost only, one of the few amendments that I actually am requesting, because to me, that barrier, that's an active barrier, meaning you have to push the button in order for that to close, whereas the current requirements for the barrier and the gates are self-closing, self-locking gates. That's a passive system. That's always going to be there.
So just for clarity, you're saying you want to keep the fence?
Yes.
Okay,
I would keep
got
the
it.
fence. So currently, sorry, I did phrase that poorly. The current code says that if you have the automatic safety, not automatic, the powered safety
Yeah,
barrier,
you
the pool
wouldn't need
cover, that exempts you from needing to have the barrier.
Got it.
So it would not exempt you any longer. And then kind of in one of the few amendments that we currently have that I wanted to stay with, in discussions with Brian and people within the stakeholders within the community, Romex. So that is the, for simpler terms, rubber-covered, rubber-covered wiring. That currently is not allowed within the village. We're going to stay with that. So that's one of the few amendments in the NEC that we're sticking with. We're removing that from being allowed. So again, that's being consistent with the construction that's currently involved in the community and also within the region. There's only a few communities in McHenry County, before you get into the close-in suburbs, that allow Romex. So we're sticking with that. So what that means is that the wiring systems would either be thin wall conduit, which is kind of a rigid conduit, or it would be the flexible metal conduit, either, can't think of the names of the flexible metal conduit. I apologize, flexible metal conduit, there we go. So yeah, again, that's easier than doing the rigid stuff. It's easier to fish through tight spaces, and that's still allowed. So it's only the Romex that is not allowed. Greenfield, thank you. One other amendment that we are removing, again, an example of, with code amendments, the difficult thing, especially in the commercial codes, is if you remove it in the way the code's references from one section to another section, it can be difficult to make sure you get it correct in all the different sections. So an example was that in dwelling unit separations in the commercial building code for townhomes, it required, instead of the typical 1 hour separation, they amended it previously to say 2 hour, but that affected about 12 other sections. And if you didn't say it properly in the other one, it created confusion about how to enforce it properly, which I've been dealing with for 10 years, and now that's gone, and so my life is simpler. So I'm definitely requesting that you approve that one. But yeah, just going back again to what the Code Council and all the people voted on, is that 1 hour is good enough for the rest of the country. Why is it not good enough for us? You still have a fire rated separation, doesn't have to go to that next level of being 2 hour. And that is there's other amendments in there, a few other ones from the fire district. Again, just kind of asking for slight changes here or there, minor items, but that's kind of the highlights of the major changes that we're looking for as far as the amendments.
Just briefly to sum up, so from staff's perspective, this has been an ongoing process. Obviously, we've been working on the codes for a year to review the newer version of the code to figure out what versions we wanted to potentially adopt, and then look at what potential local amendments are necessary to serve development of the Village of Cary. Staff is recommending support of the proposed ordinance that would adopt the codes in question, and believe that it would help to further the construction of future development in the Village, safer buildings that would be designed under current regulations as opposed to some older codes that are becoming outdated. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board will have, and staff is here as well to help answer questions as well.
Trustee McAlpine?
This may be a ignorant question, so bear with me if it is. But my question is, if somebody, I'm assuming you're grandfathered for whatever you have currently. If you met code, you're grandfathered, you don't have to go back and fix it right now to bring it up to code.
Correct. Yeah,
But
this would just
if,
apply
if they
to-
needed a permit for anything, then they're gonna be applicable to come up to code to whatever that permit is for, correct?
Right, for what's covered under the permit.
Okay,
Just the permit.
correct then, just the permit. I just want to make sure for clarification, I assumed that was correct, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that.
Trustee Dudek?
Every 3 years when they adjust these, do they come out with any sort of overview of what changes they're recommending when they do that every 3 years?
Yes, ICC publishes a document called
Excuse me, John, could you make sure the microphone is up?
ICC, which is International Code Council. When they, every 3 years, they publish what's called the significant changes to a certain code. So there's a document for every code, the building code, the fire code, mechanical code, the plumbing code, the electrical code. So you can go by, if you want to, you go back to 2003 and review the document every 3 years.
Okay, thank you for that. Then since somebody appears to be doing the work to tell us, or tell, the building community what changes are taking place every 3 years, why wouldn't we review it every 3 years when that list comes out? Why would we wait 21 years to do this?
It's certainly the changes that do occur that sometimes from past practice that I've seen in organizations, usually the code that a community adopts is not the most recent version of it, because there are issues when a code does come out. There's different ways that communities do interpret that, or different, the industry interprets the regulations. So the future code will possibly go back and amend the codes. It is something I think we're overdue for an update. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think doing a more periodic update, whether it's every version or every other version, would make sense from a standpoint to ensure that development that does occur here is up to date and up to code industry standards. So I wouldn't recommend, if we were to update this code at the 21, that you would need to update the 24 code when that comes out. But potentially when the 27 code comes out, then it would make sense to then update catch the incremental changes that have occurred in that time period.
I would recommend, we do a lot of things on this board on some sort of schedule. And you guys pick the years. If you want every other cycle, I don't really care, but I think we ought to put something on our agenda that you are forced by looking at a calendar to say we have to look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Because we might have missed some really important stuff and you just don't know.
Well, I think it's clear to say that staff monitors this as it goes along, and when these new codes are developed, that's something that they're constantly aware of. But it's a year-long process to go through all this, so the time commitment is there. But they're well aware of what is changing, and we rely on our staff to make sure that we're being fed the right information about what's going to keep us above board.
So I hear what Trustee Dudek's saying. I do agree with you to have something on the schedule, even though if it is a year-long time commitment to get it there. It makes sense if you are going to do it like you said, pick a time, 6 years, 5 years, whatever, just so we don't miss anything. And I do understand what you're saying too, Mayor, but it doesn't hurt to put it on a cycle.
Sure.
Just a little
Well,
flag.
they're like what I was saying is they're reviewing it as the codes change.
understand-
They're aware of it.
No,
but
I
they just
understand
don't
what
bring
you're
it to the
saying,
board.
But he's just saying, let's just kind of put a little flag there to try and make sure.
I'm all for it.
Not so
Every
far
other
out.
year,
That's all I'm-
every other year, the 6-year cycle or so.
What was that?
The current state law now says you have to update the code no more than every 10 years. You can't wait, 21. The state law now says no more than 10 years before you update your code. That's
That's just,
first of this
That's
year.
new.
that's new.
Got it.
Yes.
That's brand new.
Yeah.
And there is also discussion as well with the state codes that we're adopting. There's 3 codes that the state has passed, and there's been some discussion potentially for a state building code. So if that ever were to be passed, then we would be required to adopt that as well. But currently, we're doing the international codes so that, if it's every 5 years or 10 years we're doing it, we'll have more updated discussions regarding those.
I got a couple questions real fast. Romex, who in McHenry County uses Romex? I know that's something that you guys are recommending you don't want to touch here in the village. Surrounding wise in McHenry County?
The county allows, so unincorporated McHenry County?
Correct.
Does allow the Romex. And I apologize, I don't remember, there was 2 other communities in McHenry County. I do believe they were farther west.
Okay.
I don't know that off my head, I can get that for you though.
So why is your recommendation not to move forward with sticking with what code would be in theory, which would be allowing Romex?
Romex.
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
Just for that, it's a significant labor change, and having the labor that understands the installation of it, because as far as a lot of concern is the safety. People were worried about screws, nails going into Romex. But there's stuff within the code about the proper way to install
Correct.
it. And so, but not having a significant labor pool that understands that installation, there'd be some ramping up for that. So that was part of it. Until there's other communities and consensus of going that way, that was one of the ones a little more acceptable than not going to the change.
What's Cook County, Chicago? Are they allow Romex too?
No.
No?
That is where a lot of it comes from.
Got it, understood. Fire systems, fire alarms, residential, sprinklers. You guys said don't proceed with that? So that was the recommendation from the fire district? Okay. Yeah, I was just curious on the fire alarms for residential and sprinklers in residential. Your recommendation is don't move forward with that?
The single-family residential fire sprinklers, we kind of held off on because there's so
Yeah.
many, 8 lots, 10 lots. And
Correct.
there's no land for huge developments of single-family homes. So we thought, why introduce that additional cost on a single-family build where it wasn't really, there's not many homes coming this way.
Got it.
So if we lean toward the duplexes or townhouses, that end, we were more in favor with sprinklers in.
So,
We're not asking for fire alarms.
yeah. No, I'm with you. I just wanted to make sure. So, I think one of the, for educational wise, I know that there was a lot of fear mongering when we were talking about home rule and, hey, you guys can just go through and implement this stuff. There's a process involved for approving something like this, right?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something on that.
And
Thanks,
if
guys.
I
Appreciate
can
it.
clarify as well, for the residential sprinklers, the code can require for new construction for single-family detached homes and other residential structures. What is proposed in the local amendments would be that we do not require it for new single-family detached homes, but anything that would be an attached residential unit, whether it be a multifamily or a duplex townhouse building, that it would be provided for those types of structures. So that if you have multiple individuals or families living in one structure, that those would have sprinklers.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, I will go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:38. I will entertain an approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 15 of the Village Code of the Village of Cary, Illinois, adopting the 2021 International Building Code, 2014 Illinois State Plumbing Code, 2023 National Electric Code, 2021 International Mechanical Code, 2021 International Fuel Gas Code, 2021 International Residential Code, 2021 International Fire Code, 2021 Energy Conservation Code, 2021 International Property Maintenance Code, 2021 International Existing Buildings Code, and 2021 International Swimming Pools and Spa Code.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any other discussion, questions, comments? Roll call, please.
McAlpine?
Yes.
Collier?
Yes.
Dudek?
Yes.
Weinhammer?
Yes.
Stefani?
Yes.
Thank you. Administrative support. Eric, are you there to give it to us, or is?
No, I'm going to defer to staff for the updates for tonight.
Thank you. Chief Finland?
Yes, sir. Just to remind everyone, the First Street will be closed on Memorial Day, Monday, May 27th, at 10 o'clock for the Memorial Day Parade that starts basically at First and Three Oaks and ends with a ceremony at Veterans Park at Three Oaks and Park Avenue.
It's great if you guys can attend. We have flags, a huge box of flags on there, so we'll be handing those out. Director Noonan?
How about great success with your cap on top?
Sure.
Oh?
There's a slide.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I appreciate the community coming out and supporting our efforts to raise funds for Special Olympics and Comp on Top. If I remember correctly, Sergeant Rutson was our coordinator, and we did raise somewhere in the area $3,600.
Excellent. Nothing from,
No further update.
I have a speech I'd like you to prepare for.
I did want to point out it is National Public Works Week.
Oh,
point
that's
out.
why Noonan's so quiet over there, huh? He's just exhausted from the celebration, and it's only Tuesday.
And related to Memorial Day, the refuse pickup schedule does change because they do not pick up on Monday. So if your normal pickup day is Monday, you'll now be Tuesday, and so forward.
Thank you. Any future agenda items and discussion by the village board?
Just a quick question. Where did the state land with the grocery sales tax? Do they completely opted, or are they still in discussions?
It's still in discussion. Actually, we just had a press conference yesterday at Elmhurst University. There was about 60 mayors present, making our case known about LGDF. It's a miss for the village of Cary over the last 10 or 12 years, about $12 million the state should have been paying us. Think about what we could do with $12 million over the last 10, 12 years. The grocery tax, it's kind of, it's up in the air right now. From what we're being told, by some of the legislators and some of the leaders, that the governor doesn't always get what he wants. But that being said, the reduction of the grocery tax for the village of Cary would be a reduction in our annual revenue about $500,000 per year. So there's also it was filed last week to backfill it with state's general fund, and you know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, and the problem with that is, and we've been very vocal about this, is that once the state takes control of it from their general fund, it could get cut at any time. And we're trying to continuously separate the two, LGDF and the grocery tax. In our meetings that we've had with the governor and the leaders down in Springfield, we've made that very clear, that they have to be separate, because we're not going to take an increase in money that's already owed to us to substitute something that's being taken away from us. It just doesn't make sense. So we are going to continue the fight. Nothing is set in stone. I think they're actually going to continue their session into next week because of the things that are going on in the state right now. But we're on top of it. Through my other roles in the COGS and the caucus, we're on this. Actually, thanks to staff today, I wrote a letter to every senator and representative in McHenry County, even though they don't represent us. A lot of the mayors in McHenry County are doing the same, just to remind them this is critical. And to be quite frank, the representatives and the senators understand where we're coming from. It's just getting it through leadership, and that's the problem. So we will continue to fight this. A great question, thank you. I will continue bringing briefings as you requested. So, anything else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 6:44.